Member Mr. Scott for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Sue, your life story is an inspiration to some of us, apparently not all. At the announcement of your nomination, it was mentioned that your mother came from China on a cargo ship because she couldn't afford the fare. And later in her life, she talked to the President of the United States, who said that her daughter was going to be nominated as the Secretary of the United States Department of Labor. I mean, the career in between certainly is an inspiration. Now, you maintain your composure and decorum while many spent their time to explain what they would do as senators, which they are not, or challenge you on what you have done to hurt job production even after the administration that you belong to created more jobs in 28 months than any presidential administration has been able to do in a four-year term. They attacked your credit, your character. They attacked your character, but not the record number of jobs you've created. Now, let me just say, get a word in about the independent contractor. A lot has been said about how it hurts independent contractors, but I think you mentioned that if you're misclassified as an independent contractor rather than an employee, you miss out on unemployment compensation, workers' compensation, you miss out on minimum wage and overtime, you miss out on the employer contribution for Social Security, you miss out on health and pension benefits that other employees get. So the employee has a lot of disadvantage in being misclassified, but the employer also benefits with the misclassification because they don't have to pay the Social Security tax and they save a lot of money on the others, giving unfair competition to those that compete fairly and classify people fairly. You talked about the joint employment rule. The only thing that the franchisees are not hurt by any proposed joint employment rule. It's a franchisor who may be held responsible for what they've done that escape through lax joint employment rules. So, although that's not on the agenda, I think that should be clarified. Could you say a word about why you need more money for OSHA inspections?
Thank you very much for that question, Ranking Member Scott. So our OSHA does workplace investigations to ensure that workplaces are safe and healthy and that every worker who goes to work at the beginning of the day returns home. In 2021, there were over 5,000 working people who lost their lives on the job, and at least 2 million who had work-related non-fatal injuries. These are entirely preventable, and we should be doing everything we can to make sure that workers don't have to work under unsafe conditions, that a worker who works on a roof.
If you get the allocation you've requested, you'd be able to investigate, you'd be able to visit each business, once in every 100 years?
Right, OSHA's...
If you get the increased allocation. Can you say a word about what you are doing for youth employment, particularly disconnected youth?
Yes, thank you so much for that question too, Ranking Member Scott. So as we've talked about here today, young people have the tremendous potential to benefit from the robust economic recovery that we've had and the fact that a large number of jobs that are going to be created will not require a college degree. And so we have investments in youth across our workforce system, everything from apprenticeship programs and pre-apprenticeship programs to WIOA-funded youth programs that are going to make sure that young people understand that in this historic moment, we want them also to be able to benefit.
A comment was made about discrimination, religious discrimination in federal employment. Some employers want to be able to discriminate and have a policy of not hiring people of certain religions and still get a federal contract. I would hope you'd do everything you could to avoid that. And could you say just a word about why it's important to increase sanctions for unfair labor practices?
Yes, thank you so much for that question, too. So we've talked about child labor here today. What we are seeing in situations where you have really egregious exploitation of young people, that the penalties that we were able to assess in that particular case that had over 100 young people, 13 to 17 years old, was about $1.5 million. It was now widely considered not to have been enough to deter those violations, and so we're happy to be working with, to respond to requests for technical assistance from Congress about what increased penalties might look like.
And unfair labor practices and organizing?
Right, so that is within the purview of the National Labor Relations Board, which is a separate body from the Department of Labor. We don't have rules about that particular issue.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for your testimony. Madam Chair, can I introduce for the record several comments have been made about the the child labor. You'll note we sent a letter to you a few days ago to schedule a hearing on child labor abuses. And I was delighted to see a colleague from Indiana mention this as an issue, so maybe we could work together to get a hearing on that.
Do you wish to enter the letter
yes,
into the record?
Again, yes.
Without objections, we will do that.